No. Everyone.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order and approve the, has everybody had a chance to review the minutes for May?
Motion to approve?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the minutes have been approved. We are going, just a small note, we're going to adjust our agenda tonight and swap. We're going to go public comment, then report of the chair, then the director's report. Let's see, I forgot to turn my mic on. Okay, we're going to start over. I'm going to call this meeting to order. And has everybody had a chance to approve or review the minutes?
Motion to approve?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, minutes have been approved. We are going to adjust our agenda. So it will go public comment, then report of the chair, and then the director's report. We have no youth report tonight. And then we will move to old business, which is the park bond recommendations from the advisory committee. So first on our agenda is public comments. So if anybody would like to speak. Okay, yes. So please introduce yourself and then state your affiliation with the city. And our public comments are limited to 3 minutes apiece. And we do not engage in conversation. So if you have a question, staff will answer it. But otherwise, welcome.
Hi. My name is Connie Flayton, and I'm an Issaquah resident, and I have been in the Issaquah community for 22 years. I am here in support of Bone Pool. My 2 children, who are currently 15 and 18, have used Bone Pool throughout their life. They took lessons, attended birthday parties, are current members of both the Issaquah High School swim team as well as the Issaquah swim team year-round. I personally have used the pool for lap swim. A couple years ago, had a knee injury, used the pool for rehabilitation, and most recently, my 15-year-old daughter took lifeguarding. I'm very proud to say she got a job this summer, and I watched today as she taught her first class to 4- and 5-year-olds who do not know how to swim. Water safety in the city of Issaquah and surrounding community is so vitally important. We are surrounded in a 10-mile radius of none less than 12 different types of bodies of water, streams, lakes, rivers, creeks. It is so important for kids to know how to swim, and it is so very important for there to be a public place for people to learn how to swim and learn that water safety. There are many private places to go take swim lessons and learn that, but in this economy that we are in right now, it is very difficult for people to be able to afford to attend private institutions. So I'm here just to advocate that you as the city council continue your hard work to get this bond measure put on the ballot in November, and that hopefully that the citizens of Issaquah pass that ballot and as much money as necessary be given to Bone Pool to help keep it around for generations to come, so even maybe my children's children will get to take this advantage of the same opportunities that they have been able to take advantage of.
Great, thank you. Next on our list is Armando.
I'm planning on speaking, but I will say a few words. Definitely in support of the pool, and my kid's 3.5 years old. He's taken to swimming, and I think it's really important for the pool bond, for the bond to pass and get improvements made to the pool. How that gets handled is really still to be determined, but I'm really pushing for that. Also for hoping for phase 2 of the Confluence Park to take place. That is going to be a real gem for the city of Issaquah. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak? David?
Thank you. David Kapler, 255 Southeast Andrews Street. I guess the one thing, and it's really kind of a city council policy issue, is the green necklace or the emerald necklace in the Central Issaquah plan. And I'm not sure there's money that's in there that should be buying property early in that process. It's, you know, you might want to mentioned to them, you're concerned about that. By the time you take money out of that 10 million, I'm not sure you're going to take out some things that are really well supported and really needed. But I think that needs to be addressed for the future, because the Central Issaquah plan, the big selling thing has been this green necklace, and that we're going to tie it into all that open space that the county and the state and the city has acquired over time, to the state park and the rest. And I don't see money in there right now that really is going to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. So what I want to do is report on our the Park Bond Citizens Advisory Committee that met over the last week. We met on Monday and received a lot of public input. The committee also reviewed an online survey that was conducted, so the results of that, and the pool feasibility study, and we met on Thursday to kind of go over what the priorities would be. And the Citizens Advisory Committee was asked to consider what items would be funded with a park bond with the proceeds, not necessarily by dollar amount, and not whether a park bond should move forward or not, but rather what items would be important to the citizens. There were a couple things that came out in that process. The priorities, it was interesting. The priorities from the phone survey that was conducted last summer were very high on protecting wildlife habitat, preserving open space, and acquiring land near creeks and streams. And that was still, I think, a pretty high priority among participants on the surveys as well, but not so much in our public input meeting. But that was a statistically valid survey, so I think that those are important components to consider. The other thing that came out in the public input, the primary things that came out in our meeting, were the need to repair Julie's Bowen Pool and to improve sports fields. So really primarily to convert some existing sports fields to turf. The emphasis was on both the survey, I think, and in the public input, was that what we should be doing is focusing on the parks that we already have and improving them, and that we need to also be putting money aside for open space acquisition, but instead of developing new parks, we should be really focusing on the parks that we already have. Also, importantly, I think in both the phone survey and in public input, improving trails and accessibility throughout the community was important. It didn't rise to the top level in either of those, but it was something that was important. And then the other thing I wanted to point out was that improving the pool appeared to be a high priority among both pool users and non-pool users, based on the survey that was done, the telephone survey last summer. So it really is an important community asset. Let's see, what else? With respect to the pool, we got a lot of comments on the pool. People definitely appreciate the pool. They emphasize that the water safety is a high concern, swim lessons. It's used by a lot of seniors for fitness, and that's an area that isn't easily replaced. But the pool definitely has benefits for fitness. And then also the high schools and the competitive swimmers. So there's 3 high schools in the city that all share the same pool. So what kind of came out from my perspective was really that the pool needs repair, but also it's at capacity too. So that's a big issue, I think, for our region and our city, and especially if you look at the amount of growth that we've had and that we're going to continue to have. And it's a question as to, even if the pool is repaired, whether that capacity, whether that's sufficient for our area. Let's see. So what we did as a committee was we, at the end, after people shared their thoughts and concerns, we asked people to vote on their top priorities. And that is reflected in both your minutes from the meeting and also on the chart that's on the wall that kind of has the dots next to it. So what came out from that was that the top items were repairing the pool, developing the second phase of Confluence Park, and then improving sports fields. And also, like right behind that was acquiring lands near creeks and streams. So the only item there that was a little bit just, that was kind of a new item that didn't resonate as much in the telephone survey and on the online survey was doing the second phase of Confluence Park and funding that. And I think that the reason that appealed to people on our committee is that it meets a lot of the goals that we talked about. So it met, it's talking about developing an existing park, so moving that forward. It has all the creekside land, so it hits that idea of kind of protecting the creeks and streams, and improving accessibility within and walking trails. That second phase would promote that within the city. And also it's within that downtown Issaquah area and could be a critical component of the Green Necklace. So I think that was why, and we can hear from other people later when we do our old business, but I think that was why that resonated with the people in our committee. So that was Confluence Park. Improving the fields, what came out of our discussions was that the most important thing was to, with respect to sports fields, was to improve what we already have. So our city has a lot of sports fields. We developed with our last park bond, the Central Park, the two turf fields in Central Park, and they are a huge community asset. Community loves them. They're used all the time, and they've been a great resource. The lights are another important component. So if you have the turf fields, you can use those fields in the wintertime and in the fall when the weather's terrible, and in the spring, all year pretty much, despite the rain and despite the darkness, as long as you have lights. So especially for the fall and winter sports practices, if you don't have lights, you can't use those fields in the evening. So if we do, if the city installs new turf fields, we'll want to make sure that those have the capability of being lit. Let's see, what else? If another concern was raised, if we do install turf fields at Central Park, we need to also make sure that we're addressing the infrastructure around those fields. So those fields, that area, the roads are very narrow, the parking is on the street, and it makes it very difficult to get by already if there's teams coming and going. So if we increase the capacity up there for turf fields, we need to address that infrastructure, improve parking and lighting, which is just looking out for the safety of our citizens. Let's see. Open space, like I mentioned before, was really a high priority in the phone survey, and we also got that resonated with people in the online surveys as well. And we need that money. We need to definitely set aside money because those funds historically have been able to be leveraged for to buy more than what we could with just our own funds. So you can leverage those funds with grants, but you have to have the money, the seed money, to get those grants. And let's see. With respect to the pool, a lot of discussion was about whether $5 million, which is kind of what we've talked about allocating in a $10 million bond, whether $5 million would, what would that get us? And does that get us what our community needs? So it definitely would repair, our sense is that would repair the pool. But it's not going to address the capacity issue. And not only that, the pool will be down for approximately a year. So I have a question, what do all those people do, right? What do the seniors do who are using that and relying on that facility? What do the swim teams do? Where do you go for swim lessons? So that's something that is a concern, at least to me, but was raised as well. So we should talk about that. And the last thing I wanted to point out was with respect to initially comments were, or in the initial list that we looked at of proposed items to fund with the park bond included 2 new skate parks, and then that was cut down to 1 new skate park. And those skate parks are at a cost of about $350,000. And our citizens, we didn't hear a demand for that in the telephone survey or on the online survey or in public comments. So it didn't appear to be high on the list of priorities for the citizens, and especially at that price tag. And so while I definitely understand the need, if we take away a skate park or replace it, there's definitely a need for that. But the park bond may not be the right place to fund that. And there were some people, there were about half of our committee thought that including a skate park on the park bond measure might actually be detrimental, because it can be a divisive concept. So, okay. So with that being said, what I've asked Anne to do and her department is to come up with a revised list of potential funding with taking into consideration the items that resonated with people at our meeting on Thursday, and that's what we're going to look up. So I'm turning it over to Anne, and then after her report, which will focus on this, we will have an opportunity to decide whether we're going to recommend these items or not, or whether we want to modify them, or how we want to move forward.
Hello. Before we get to that, I just wanted to recognize one tiny little housekeeping thing here. This is Sharon Rosenlund's last park board meeting. She has been our administrative assistant for 20 plus years, and she has served our city with a lot of cheerfulness, a really can-do attitude, and I wanted to recognize her tonight and thank her for serving our community in such a great way. So.
Yes.
Okay, so as Danielle said, after the Citizens Advisory Committee came together, listened to public input, read all the online survey, reviewed the EMC survey, reviewed the pool feasibility survey, she asked us to come up with a revised, we call it the wish list. And so that's in front of you. So I'm going to ask you just to take a few minutes to read it. And then the other component to this are frequently asked questions. We get a lot of questions about the pool. And as Danielle mentioned, we are not increasing or propose to increase water capacity with this bond. We're not increasing the lanes. We're not adding a leisure component. We're just repairing the pool to keep it going another 25 to 30 years. So we put the frequently asked questions that we heard over and over in the last couple of weeks down there for you. And so I'm just going to give you a few minutes to read this to see if you have more questions before we go on. So I'll just let you have a few minutes here. Yes, Ruben,
Yeah, I do have a question. In those areas where we can get grants,
I think you need to turn on your mic.
in those areas where you can't get grants like open space, playgrounds, these numbers, do they reflect an effort to get grants? Or is this
No,
the whole
this would just
cost?
be our seed money. The numbers in the box.
Right. So would 100,000 be enough, or are we proposing that we need some extra grants to cover
Well,
that?
for instance, on the playground, $100,000 to replace some playground equipment would be enough to replace that.
Okay.
Where we would probably go after grants would be on the acquisition of open space and then the improvements of the sports fields. King County has a youth sports grant that we can go after. There's not that many grants for playground replacement.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Just as a reminder, last time when we did the park bond, we allocated, I think, $3.5 million for open space acquisition, and we're able to leverage that into $9 million approximately.
Margaret McLeod, our park planner, was able to go obtain another $9 million. So she's a very talented grant writer.
Right. So there's no guarantee that that'll happen this time, but for sure, that open space acquisition, that open space land is the best place to acquire grants for most opportunities. Yes.
On number 3, there was pretty good discussion about the possibility of partnering with other governmental entities to expand the water capacity that that is so limited at Bone Pool. And so I think people thought that was a feasible way to expand capacity for the pool. It doesn't look as though on site there's much potential to expand the pool or add another pool on that particular site, but it sounds as though there have been some intergovernmental discussions and that would be the best way to achieve the actual water expansion and have more people be able to participate.
And there was also a lot of discussion about whether there were opportunities within the Issaquah School District to partner, especially given that that the pool currently is used by 3 high schools in the area. So, and is really used as a community by a much larger user group than just the city of Issaquah. So we discussed trying to partner with the school district possibly, and then also whether there are other partnership opportunities within King County or East King County. And for sure, that was really very much encouraged by the committee to move forward with those. Anybody else have questions? Responses? Yes, Brad.
And with this $900,000 that's allocated for Confluence Phase 2, will that actually complete Phase 2, or is that just towards some work towards Phase 2?
I don't know that it would complete Phase 2, Brad, as we say at the top, that the final cost will not be known until projects go to bid.
Okay.
We could complete quite a bit of it. It's another area that I think we would go and try to get some grants, especially on the creek improvements. But our first phase that you see out there now is about $1 million. And so you have a sense of what you can do for that amount of money.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else have questions?
And we brought our whole staff here. Matt does open space. Jen is the pool manager. Rick is facilities, can answer questions. Ross works with all the different sports groups on booking fields. So that's why they're here tonight. So if you have questions for them too, they'd love to answer questions.
Oh, I did have a question for Rick. So the pool would be closed for about a year to get that renovated?
Yeah, until we get through the design and development, our estimate was approximately 6 to 10 months, 10 months being the longest, preferably be a 6-month program to refurbish the pool.
And do we know, we have kind of know what we would do with all those pool users in the meantime? We heard a lot about how heavily used it is.
Yeah, I don't think that's been discussed in detail at this point.
We don't have an
No.
answer yet, Danielle.
Yeah.
Yes.
One of the concerns that was raised on the advisory committee was wondering whether or not it's possible that once we get into renovation of the pool, we'll find a lot of unanticipated expenses, and whether or not the budget for the pool is adequate. I wonder if you could address that a little bit.
Yeah, the way we approach that is, it's a little more challenging on a retrofit or an older building than it is on a new construction sort of thing. But we would work very closely with design engineers, and as the project develops, say to a 60 or 70% design phase, then you can start working in your cost and make good projections as to if you need to reduce the scope of the work, or you have room to increase the scope of the work at that time and allow yourself a contingency to operate under during the construction process. So it's not unusual to find discoveries when you're getting into an old building, but you make your best efforts to plan for those and have a contingency fund that would hopefully cover those.
So given the problem with the pools, with the pool, I'm assuming if you did experience increased cost, that might limit what you did with the front desk or offices or that kind of thing.
It could.
Is that correct?
Some of those improvements would have to be prioritized during the design and development phases.
So the pool feasibility study, I think identified what we're talking about as option A. Is that correct?
Correct. Which
was the bare minimum to have a pool function, a public pool function in Issaquah. The priority appeared to be what was labeled as B+, which was keeping the existing pool but converting it to like a warm water leisure pool, I guess, and then installing a new pool next to it. If we did this option A, could we later do the improvements that were called for in the option B? B+, I mean.
What might make sense on one of those is to look at, they also had a plan which was the B and then the B+. The B kept the competitive pool that we have now, plus added an outdoor leisure. So that would be less interference if we completed a $5 million renovation and then added a leisure component outside versus B+, which put the leisure component inside and the competitive pool outside. So it would not make good sense to do a $5 million renovation and then gut it, make it leisure, and then do the competitive outside pool. So that would be the B+.
Yeah. So you would have to gut what you did.
Yeah.
The renovations that you would be doing wouldn't be conducive to.
Yeah, because the B+ design calls for the inside to be an all leisure component. So which would be removing the
But
competitive
that could
pool.
be potentially years off.
Yeah.
So my understanding is if the $5 million Band-Aid, as I like to call it, is put on the pool, how long does that extend the life of the pool?
Working with the Ballard King folks and a complete refurbish of the mechanical systems and the tenant improvements on the inside of the building are to give us another 20 to 30 years. And I'd like to think with a well-run maintenance program, we're going to be closer to that 30-plus year mark. It's kind of like when you get a car, even a brand-new car, you're going to have to do certain things to it. So there are still maintenance exists, changing the brakes on your car, and there's things that go on in the pool. But it would be another 30 years to where we're looking at new technology and seeing if we're at if it's cost prohibitive to keep running the pool in its condition in 30 years.
Question on the Confluence Park. You have $900,000 proposed, and you're indicating that that's going to be pedestrian bridge, and it's more planning. I'm assuming that the bridge is going to eat up most of that $900,000.
You might want to turn on your mic, Al. I don't know if it's on or not. We're on the bridge, until we go out to bid,
It's the bottom one.
we're not sure
Push it hard.
if it will eat up most of the $900,000. The bridge that was originally proposed by our landscape designers was a bit out of our price range. We like the bridges that the U.S. Forest Service and the national parks use. We feel that they're more reasonably priced and that they are very attractive and that they seem to last for years and years. So we are looking at something that's we think would be more financially palatable for the citizens of Issaquah.
Is there also going to be some improvements for parking along Rainier and Holly Street?
On those improvements, we're working with our Public Works Engineering Department through their street improvement program. But that would not be part of a park bond.
Right, yep, understood.
Separate.
Thanks.
Just a side note, when will the gates be down, where they're up around phase 1 of Confluence Park right now?
I'm going to let Rick
Yeah.
answer that one.
As you can see, the park looks finished. We're almost completely finished. We're waiting for PSE to do final power hookups. And right now, that work is tentatively scheduled for the second week in July.
Okay.
So after that, when the park does get powered up, there's some testing of equipment and stuff that needs to happen after that, as far as the irrigation systems, the heating systems for the restrooms, and lighting systems and some of that stuff. So there's a little bit of confidence testing that needs to happen after the hookup, and then we'll be very close to opening the park.
Will it be gated off again when phase 2 begins?
Yeah, whenever we do a construction project like that for liability reasons, and the contractor's equipment needs to be kept safe, we would fence the project off.
So I think we would fence off the project, the portion of the park where construction is happening. We would try to keep open some portion of the park if we could for public access, but safety would be our number one goal.
Yeah, correct. You're likely phase 1 would still be accessible. The area behind it would be fenced off for the phase 2 project.
Question on the Muirwood Park and Gibson Park playground replacement. Are you anticipating the footprint for those playgrounds to stay the same, or would they be enlarged? Because neither one is particularly big.
We're not
there've been-
anticipating enlarging the footprint. What we'd like to do on both of those parks, Al, is what we did on our other neighborhood park playground replacement, where we host public input meetings specifically for those neighborhoods, and we encourage parents to bring their children, and we bring in some vendors with some different style of playground equipment and actually have the kids vote on what they like. And so it's a matter of trying to offer them different and more innovative playground equipment than what they see now. But the actual footprint would pretty much stay the same.
Okay, great. Thanks.
And Ann, how did you identify those 2 parks as potential sources?
Thanks for asking that, Danielle. Muirwood Park is one that we inherited from King County when we annexed the South Cove area. And we did safety improvements when we first obtained that park. But we didn't do any improvements as far as replacing it. And Gibson Park, we improved about 15 years ago, Matt, is that what you said? So these are the last 2 parks in our neighborhood parks that have playgrounds where we haven't done some major replacement of the playground equipment. All of our other parks, as is in this response here, we've upgraded the playground equipment, made it more interesting and fun for children and their parents. And these are the last 2 in our system that are very outdated. And so that's part of it. The other piece is that what we heard from, again, the EMC survey, public input, was that neighborhood parks were very important. They're places where people meet other parents, families get to know each other. And if we can make our neighborhood parks interesting and fun and a place where people want to go, then all the better.
One more question on the pool. The elevator, that's a new item that I haven't heard about before. What's ADA requirement, we're trying to
Well-
update, where's that at?
Yeah, the elevator was part of the package that we received from Ballard King as a recommendation for some of the ADA improvements to take place at the pool. It's something we need to look at as we're bringing the pool up to date with current ADA codes, and it's highly likely that it would just become a requirement during construction. That point would be triggered.
Where are you looking at installing that at?
That's a challenging question at this time. We haven't exactly narrowed it down to the specific footprint of the elevator, but
Okay,
we think it can be done. Okay.
I know you can do it.
Yeah.
Do you have a time frame in mind for when the pool would be closed for construction? Are you looking at a specific season?
I think it would be hard to set dates on that until we get a,
Jen Newton is
Yeah.
our pool manager.
Well, probably the best time of the year would be near the end of the summer through the fall and winter timeframe. It is usually the slowest time for swim lessons and other programs like that. but it's probably the most unfortunate time for the high school swim teams. So there's really no time of the year that's really the best time to close down the pool because we're always in use by somebody.
So Matt, one of the priorities, like I said, it wasn't the highest priority, but kind of something that resonated with people was improving trails, existing trails. And I know that's your specialty. So, but there aren't, except for perhaps the trails or the kind of trail component of Confluence Park, there wouldn't be funds used, and then the acquisition of open space, which would impact you, but there's not funds allocated towards trail improvements. Is that something that, I guess, I know you use often volunteer work. Can you just talk to us a little bit about how you go about improving trails in the city?
Yeah, most of the trails or trail work we do is done through volunteers. So we have the Issaquah Alps Trails Club. They do a lot of trail maintenance. We have a contract with Mountains of Sun Greenway where they kind of have certain trails that they maintain also. And then we also work with WTA, which is Washington Trails Association. They do some volunteer projects and training projects along with Mountains of Sound Greenway, but most of that's all with volunteers having to pay for like a crew leader time. So coming out of our budget is the way we do those.
So assume you'd like funds, but
Yeah,
are you able
funds
to
would be-
survive without them?
Funds would be nice. We have a pretty active group of hikers which really take ownership of the trails, so that is definitely helpful with the maintenance of them. But yeah, funding is always nice.
And for Park Point, where we're doing trail improvements, is that, like, are you lining up your trail volunteers now, or how's that going? And
We are actually going to be working with the Washington Trails Association on the development of those trails. And again, it'll be the crew leader time with them organizing and training the volunteers to build the trails for Park Point. So that's hopefully going to be starting here this fall and then continuing on through 2014 to complete those trails.
okay, thanks. And Anne, I know that another component of kind of trails and connections within the city is sort of outside the park department scope, but rather is probably more a public works issue. And can you talk a little bit about what you know about areas that are happening in that area?
David Fujimoto is the Department Director of the Office of Sustainability, and one of the goals, council goals he's working on this year is called the Bike Pedestrian Plan. And a group of staff will be coming to your July meeting to talk to you about this, and they will be actually seeking your input on their first draft of it. And so part of what they're doing is they're meeting with several different community groups throughout Issaquah who ride bikes and walk throughout Issaquah. And they are trying to have more and better connections, whether you're walking or biking. And that includes connections in between parks. And they focus on different groups of people, because some people are very serious bicycle commuters. Some people are recreational bicyclists that are just trying to get from, their house to like a grocery store. They're not necessarily commuting. And so they're trying to take in all types of different bike path users, pedestrian path users, and they've hired a consultant, and lots of public input going on now. And this is a multi-year project. For the city to accomplish what it wants to do, there has to be an acquisition of right-of-way to do all the pathways that they wish to do. So that is something that we are part of. Matt's been to the meetings, I've been to the meetings, that we're a part of for providing input, providing maps, providing information where they want to make improved connections. And so that is a city goal, and that if you haven't heard about it, you will be hearing more about it. It's been on our city website, and if you get a chance to respond to any of their online surveys, I would encourage you to do so.
Thanks. Anybody else have questions? I have another one for Ross. Don't want you to feel left out. kind of multi-use turf fields was something that was brought up a lot in our public input. And you're in charge of the scheduling, correct? Of the
Yeah, the rentals of our athletic fields.
yeah. So, can you just talk a little bit about the existing turf fields and kind of how often they're used, or what their capacity is, and whether we have room for more users there, or kind of where we are?
Sure. The Central Park Complex is, of course, the 2 artificial turf fields that were completed with bond money and other sources of funding from the 2006 bond. And those fields are heavily scheduled, heavily used by football, lacrosse, soccer, and then also in the Central Park Complex, of course, is Central Park Field 1, which is a baseball field, which is also heavily used, but primarily for baseball. And so potentially turning that space into a multi-use facility where you now can accommodate the football and the lacrosse and the soccer, as well as baseball and softball, in a year-round environment, which right now it's not. Of course, it's just natural turf, natural grass. And then the biggest change in usage is the lighting, because you can almost double usable space with lighting. And so it changes a lot. It changes a lot. It adds a lot more space to the user groups there.
So that baseball field that's there is not, who uses that? What user group uses that?
It's used by baseball. So you have Issaquah High School uses that field. Their freshman team uses that field. And then we have numerous baseball groups and tournaments and teams and leagues that use that field. But it is baseball and softball.
Right. It's not a little league size, right?
It's right now it's a 90-foot field.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a full-size baseball field. And so when you look to potentially use bond funds to resurface that field, then you look at incorporating multi-sports into that same site.
Does it get rid of the baseball field then?
You would actually, and a great example of how it can be done is up at Skyline High School. They have multi-use year-round artificial turf with lights. And so you have your baseball use, you have your football use, lacrosse use, and soccer use all in the same space. And so it's really an ingenious design how it's laid out and how the installers can fit it all into one space. And so it accommodates everything.
I'd like to ask, with this ingenious design going forward, since we do have football or soccer lines, lacrosse lines, and baseball, that maybe we could put some football lines on one of the fields as well going forward. I think that might be helpful.
Yeah, and I think that what we look at and how we lay the field out is yet to be determined, and what we decide to put where is something that certainly is something we would be discussing.
So how does can you talk a little bit about how you schedule teams, and kind of are there priorities in different types of the year, like how do you fit all these competing teams onto the fields?
Yeah, it's a great question. If we could if we had enough capacity to fit everybody on, it would be an easy job. But I'll tell you, what we try to do is we look first at those groups and organizations that live within the city of Issaquah's Parks and Recreation service area. And that is, if you hit an 80% of your organization reaches that residency requirement, then you have first priority.
Sorry, is that City of Issaquah or the school district?
Our service area is the school district boundary, and so what you see is typically with the youth sports organizations is they're made up of folks from not just the city limits, but city limits plus outside of the city limits, and so that's why we have those criteria for scheduling. So that's the first priority group, and then we give fields to the school district per our interlocal agreement with the school district, in which we share facilities. And then it's open up to folks outside of the service area. And there's not much left when it gets to that point.
Right.
So that's where using park bond funds like the one proposed here goes a long distance.
I guess one concern with taking a field that's currently serves one sport and making that multi-use is whether that then crowds out that particular sport that uses it during that season. So that would be, I think, something we would want to take into consideration.
Sure.
I don't think there's a lot of that size field, baseball field in the city.
But we do have quite a few baseball fields.
But a lot of them are little league fields, so they're different. They're different size and different.
What
user
we
group.
do, it's a great question, Danielle. What we do when we schedule fields is we look at where's the demand coming from and at what base length do we have the need. And we have some flexibility, especially at the Tibbetts Valley Complex, where we can move the base length according to where that bulge is in need or demand for that particular field. And I would assume that when we look at design of a multi-use facility, we would take that into consideration as well.
So you could convert a field at Tibbetts to
Where you potentially at a multi-use field, you would be able to move the base lengths.
yeah.
Like we do at Tibbetts.
Okay.
One advantage to some limitations at Tibbetts, for example, are the fence length, the depth of the field, and so we're limited by that.
Right.
In part.
Okay, that's good to know. I would hate to see one user group get totally pushed out.
Yeah.
It's great to be able to use to appeal to more users, but it would be a shame. Do others have questions? Yes.
Could somebody give me a rundown, forgive me if this is duplicative of previous information, but of the green necklace? Do you want to do that, Matt? Is that
So the green necklace concept is a series of parks or open space that all connect along Issaquah Creek, and that at one time will all join together as a trail that meanders through town and connect with other city open space and parks and trail systems. So it would kind of start like at Lake Sammamish and work its way upstream to the city limits and then potentially beyond also, where you have, Squaw Mountain State Park, and King County owns a lot of open space outside of the city limits. That one time that would all then connect together. It's kind of the green necklace.
how's it determined how it connects?
Um,
Do you acquire land as it becomes available, or?
Exactly, that would be the goal.
Yeah, so it's important to a couple things. One is that's part of the Central Issaquah Plan, which is to increase density on the valley floor. And so in connection with that increased density, we want to make sure as a city that we have green space and space for people to walk and bike or get around town without using their cars. So that's sort of another component of that green necklace, not just along the creeks, but also connecting the new urban area. And that would sort of go all the way around town, which is, I think, where that necklace idea comes from. And then the other thing to keep in mind is when the city goes about acquiring lands, we don't want to identify specific properties for acquisition, but rather keep it open, and so that kind of just makes it easier for the city to acquire land. So we won't draw, exactly what that necklace is going to look like, right? But we know in general that we want to acquire lands in this area for that purpose.
Is $2 million enough?
Well, $2 million is not going to be enough. It's not even, I don't think, be close to being enough. But if you remember, with our last park bond, when we had the $3.5 million, we were able to leverage that and over double that amount. So hopefully it'll provide some seed money. It's probably not enough seed money, frankly, to we could probably use a lot more. But it's definitely a start.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but if you look at what prices are of real estate, it's not, $2 million doesn't buy you a whole lot.
I'm painfully aware.
Yeah. Especially in that downtown core, so.
There may be developer involvement in that process too, right?
Yeah, the hope would be that, that developers will kick in, and that'll be required, but you don't necessarily want to wait for that, and if a perfect property comes up, in the meantime, we want to be in a position where we can buy it. Yeah. When I say we, I don't mean we, I mean
Yes.
I just wanted to touch on the pool capacity issues a little bit, because that came up in the community meetings and our discussions. So my recollection is from the feasibility study, it might take as much as another $10 million maybe to expand the existing pool. Is that in the ballpark?
Well, I guess the first option we looked at for expansion was Plan B,
Right.
which was 10 million, so it's actually 5 million more than what we're proposing for Plan A. So theoretically, you could, in the future, look at doing a leisure component outside for that additional, what they estimated at 5 million at the time.
That's just like a little kiddie play pool.
Right.
One with actual swimming lanes and everything was like $20 million, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, this
Right.
would be like
The
an
B plus
outdoor
was-
splash
Yeah.
pad with slides and some
Yeah, little
totally leisure stuff for
little
the kids
fake
to play in.
And would it be better served if it were to get that large to actually just find a different site altogether?
Well, that's hard to say right now, but these leisure components are popular, and Jen knows more about those than I do, but the splash pads and the leisure components for the families and the kids is becoming very, very popular in the pool world, so it's worth considering, I think.
Yeah, the traditional swimming pool for competitive swimmers isn't really where pools are going, right? So people and competitive swimmers need a different water temperature than swim lessons, and probably others would like. So it makes a lot of sense to have separate bodies of water for those.
But the reason that it's a $5 million for the pool is because that's what the survey thought would pass the bond the easiest.
Well, we weren't really yes, and there were two questions, right? One for the $10 million bond, which would include just the fix, and then the other was for the B plus option, which was more of a 21 million is what the question was, and that was not asked to the city residents, but rather to the school district residents, and there was still favorable. There was still a favorable response, I think, for that from the school district. And I think that response increased when people were educated about how much it would cost them on a per voter level. It's more complicated with the school district. Ann, you want to talk about that?
Part of asking other jurisdictions if we can tax their voters is the city of Issaquah would have to go to all of our neighboring cities. That would be Sammamish, Bellevue, Renton, Newcastle, and then our neighbors, our King County neighbors, and ask permission to set up a district to tax their voters. Since we did that survey last summer, the EMC phone survey, the city of Sammamish has decided to partner up with YMCA and do their own pool. So it would be unlikely that they would want to ask us, be able to ask their voters to tax them for a pool in Issaquah. That seems unlikely. So that's part of the whole situation. And going to Renton and Newcastle, which are actually quite far away. And so one of the things that came up with our Citizens Advisory Committee was this notion of the next time the school district runs a bond, could we sit down and talk with the school district about the possibility of a competitive space for competitive swimmers on a school campus? Because there are two different needs in our community, and this came out during the pool feasibility study. There are folks, as Danielle mentioned, who want swimming lanes for competitive. They want cooler water. They have different times of the day. They tend to work out early in the morning, after school. And then there's the swim lesson folks. They want a little bit warmer water. There's the folks, the seniors, and some of them are dealing with arthritis. They want a little bit warmer water. And then what we heard was, we want some recreational fun components like they have at the Henry Moses Pool down in Renton. So the whole pool world is changing a bit. And we know that this $5 million is not ideal. Jeremy calls it the Band-Aid. We call it life support. We know it's to keep our pool going because it is such a valuable asset. And so, again, it's not perfect, but we're just trying to keep the pool alive until we come up with a different and better plan. And if you want to add, Jen, anything else that I might have missed?
Oh, Ruben.
Yeah, I had a question. In reference to the Renton pool, Do the high schools there have their own pools, or is Renton serving the same purpose we are, doubling as a high school pool and a recreational pool?
Some of Renton does swim, but they have the Covington pool that they swim out inside. But they also will rent the outdoor lap pool even during the winter at Henry Moses to work out in.
And then they use Hazen and.
Hazen, yep, and Lindbergh
And
pool.
Lindbergh.
And so, yeah, everybody's searching for pools.
It sounds like in their situation, some of the high schools have their own pool for competitive
Yes,
swimming,
they do.
whereas our three don't.
No.
The Hazen pool is at Hazen High School.
Yes. Yeah, and even the Issaquah swim team that we're their home pool, they actually also swim down at Hazen because they can't get enough time at our pool.
Okay, thank you.
So we have people that travel all the way down there to swim. And they also swim outside at Kahani just to get time in the pool. So does the high school.
Yeah, I think that we heard that the high school teams get three 1-hour blocks a week, which is just amazing. I mean, that's just
They
not
get an
sufficient.
hour and 15 minutes, 3 days a
3
week.
days a week.
And they get 3 lanes per high school. So, and Skyline can't even practice at our pool because we don't have enough space. They practice up at Kahani outside. And all their swim meets are at our facility on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So they cram in the girls' season, sometimes 60 or 70 girls in 3 lanes.
Well, and it's not only a school swim team issue as well. I mean, I've been privy a couple of times to not even being able to get into swim lessons. You know, so I know that this Band-Aid is essential to keep the pool running, but I think whatever, you know, we move forward, that the city, I know that, you know, the Parks Department is aware of it, but the city council needs to know that going forward, this capacity issue is just going to get worse. With the Central Issaquah plan, you know, and the urban growth that they want to do downtown there, we're not addressing any of that right now. So
We had over 7,600 kids in swimming lessons last year, and that doesn't include our school programs.
yeah.
So I think that part of the challenge here is what the community of Issaquah will support if this bond goes up to a vote. And there are long wish lists, and we could spend a lot of public money very well. But if we go out for the vote and the citizens aren't convinced that the amount of money is worth what they're getting, or that it's just too much money, then we end up with nothing. So I think there's been excellent public input on all of this, and Danielle just did a superb job at the public meeting we had. The kids from the swim team were there, and Danielle encouraged them to all sign up, so they all had their moment of democracy and spoke to the large group. It was really very inspiring to be there, and I think the Citizens Advisory Committee took the task very seriously too and gave a lot of input. So there's always more we could do. I think the issue we have to decide is what will the public support, and within that, what are the most critical things that we need to do? And those are tough decisions. But again, if we put this up to a vote and it's too much for the public to bear, we will end up with nothing. And it really worries me to think about not having the money to get Bone Pool exactly, just basically where it needs for people to use it. I mean, the public testimony talked about swimming with hairballs in the pool and cloudy water towards the end of the day because the equipment just can't keep up with the use. So that's the dilemma.
The flip side of that is that I don't think that we didn't really receive good input as far as what the city residents, what their temperature was for for an increased, I guess, funding for a pool, right? We received this $10 million question, which got overwhelming support. We know that the citizens support renovating or at least, fixing up the pool, and a lot supported as a high priority, major renovations. And then we have the question about the $21 million for the school district, but it sounds like that's not really a feasible option at this point to go out to the school district. So I wish we had the missing piece, which is how much would the city of Issaquah residents pay? And I feel like that's what's missing here. And it would be a shame where we don't want to ask for more than what will get support. We also don't want to, if there was support, I would think it would be a shame to ask for too little and just get a Band-Aid fix when it would be more cost effective in the long run to, do a major renovation without scrapping what we've paid for. And I wonder if the public would support in a few years another bond measure for, a new pool when they say, we just paid for a bond, we just did a bond measure to fix that pool. So anyway, that's where I'm feeling. I'm really feeling very torn.
It's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised that you don't have more public pools, recreational type pools. I mean, outdoor-wise, I think Kirkland has one.
Kirkland?
Kirkland, outdoor recreational.
Yeah,
But it sounds like you're competing here with recreational and competition and lessons, and I'm very much used to having public pools are outdoors and they're for swimming lessons and having fun. And then the competitional stuff is usually within the school district, but.
Yeah, it's pretty shocking when you really think about that we
Yeah.
have a bunch of high schools, a big population, and one public pool. And when you
And
look
if
at the
you-
numbers and the numbers when the pool was built versus now, it's
Yeah.
just like,
So, the concept of having a recreational pool to pull those people away from there to make that open for that
yes.
is, an idea. Maybe the public might enjoy that. I mean, my kids would enjoy that,
It may not even be sufficient though because the school district, the swim team, kids can only practice at certain
Right,
times,
right.
right?
So
So
it's-
even if
so
you
it's
pull
idle.
that,
It's
I don't
idle.
know if that would be fix the capacity issue.
I think that Jen and her group do a great job with what they have. I mean, I've been in there for swimming lessons. You have swimming lessons on one side, and then the other side you have swim team where the coach is yelling at them, and you can't hear anything in the whole place. Yet, my kid has learned to swim when she's been able to get in the classes. But it's just a capacity issue.
We've learned to be very creative with ropes at the Issaquah Pool.
So one thing that came up was that the pool is closed on Sundays currently. And I understand that probably is good to give a break to everybody, staff and the pool facility. If we did these upgrades and kind of got the pool back, gave it a new life, do you think that would increase that capacity for Sundays? Is that something that we would consider opening?
Yes, most definitely. I did a little test of it just this year where we opened up some additional Saturday evening classes because they had never been really all that popular before. And we ran one session and the second session filled up just like that. And so I know I can't guarantee anything, but there would be people who would come in on Sundays, not only to just recreationally swim, but they would also want lessons. And I've even heard from swim teams that they'd be willing to come in and rent space on Sundays also.
I'm sure they would.
Yes.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, what is the number that would give us more capacity if we're not looking at the recreational additions of fancy stuff? Just what would you need in order to get the amount of capacity that you think would actually be functional and not just be a Band-Aid?
25 million.
20, yeah, it was the
20.
B plus, the 20
Yeah, the B
million,
20
21
plus,
million.
that's the one that gave us
Yeah.
a larger
Plus the
8-lane
pilots.
competitive pool. That was 21 million.
Okay. And that was
26 million.
that was one pool, or that was building a second?
That was adding an 8-lane competitive pool on the outside of the existing building and turning the inside of the existing building into the leisure component.
But it was an indoor competitive pool. They were both
were
indoor.
indoor.
Yeah.
Right.
And the leisure component, does that allow you to run swim lessons in there?
Oh, yes.
So what kind of programs would you run in this leisure program, like swim lessons, water aerobics, or fitness type things? Yeah.
Everything. There's also several aquatic groups like scuba divers, kayakers, water polo players that we can't even entertain their needs because of the use that we have right now. And so with increased capacity would also increase other groups' use that we don't even meet right now. And those groups like the cooler competitive pools. And so we would keep, the warmer water for the groups that like, and so it would, yes, it would be a good thing.
Yeah, you could increase capacity at both, right?
Oh, yes.
You'd be able to fill them.
Most
yeah.
definitely.
Al, do you have any more questions?
Just, I think everybody's done a wonderful job. Staff has done a great job. The advisory board did a great job. Some great information, and I think these numbers are excellent. I think they're very, very realistic. And my question is now, it's my understanding that we move forward towards a recommendation to the council. And what is our feeling from the council, from administration, as far as when is this bond issue is it going to go this fall? Is that what is the feeling? Because I know you folks worked on this very hard and very fast, and did a great job. And if we need to move forward, what's your feeling on how that's going to go?
Well, here's the process that they're looking for, the mayor's looking for. She's looking for a recommendation from you tonight. And then tomorrow we have an agenda bill that has a placeholder, depending on, I'm assuming that the mayor, she still wants to go forward with the park bond for November 2013. It would go in front of our council July 1st, which is next Monday. Is it next Monday? No, it's the following Monday. It's in 2 weeks. And
No,
it's
it's
next
Monday.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
No, it's next Monday. This is going very fast. And so at that time, our council would have to decide if they want to move forward for the November election or not, because the city attorney, the bond attorney, and the city clerk have to prepare the election packet. And then we would have to come back to them July 15th with a resolution from the city council saying, yes, go forth. So that's what we're getting from the mayor right now, is that she wants to move forward with the November 2013. All that material is due into the King County Election Department by August 6th. So our city clerk needs a decision, at the July 1st, and then the July 15th would be really just finalizing a decision our council would make July 1st. So our council, they will get all the same information that you're receiving, and Warren, our communications person, he's going to put all the comments that came in through public input on the city's website, so the council will have access to all of that, same kind of thing. So they get a feel for the kind of input that citizens gave in person and online. And so we'll see. The one thing that we, as you saw here, is that the skateboard park or parks did not resonate with this particular group of folks. And so we're not sure how the council will react to that. But they do have other methods if they wish to fund a skateboard park, either through general fund or park mitigation.
Well, I think it's important to note, and that the council knows, that not only did it not resonate, that it was on the board and nobody put a sticker on it and wanted it taken off. So
we'll get that message.
If the city council wants to put that back on,
yeah,
maybe perhaps they could find some other funds somewhere else besides making the taxpayers pay for something that the majority of the action committee didn't see that was a community need.
We will definitely get that message to them, and they can decide how they want to proceed or not.
Yeah, not everything is just by, the most, there are some decisions that are made, based on other considerations. I think like these neighborhood parks didn't rate super high either on our board. But we know that as a city, we want to have updated neighborhood parks, and that there's a value to them, and they're important to us. So they weren't low on the super. It wasn't like nobody thought they were important, but I think they weren't the super high. The other thing that we haven't talked about at all, so I guess we should probably hear a little bit about, was the field drainage at Tibbetts Valley Parks, and then also the community center green, because that's on here. This would be what I would classify as improvements to existing parks, which was a high priority, but.
I'm going to ask Rick and Ross to talk about that, and Rick can talk about the installation, and then Ross can talk about the results that we've been hearing about.
Yeah, we recently did a field over at TVP, and it's turned out great, and Ross will talk a little bit about the benefits of the increased playing time, but it's an innovative system that's put in golf courses. We still need to do it in fields 1, 2, and 5, and then we would hope to do it at the community center greens also, which if any of you have been to some of the first concerts over there, you realize it can be, you just get wet trying to get in the turf out there and sit or something. There's no reason that shouldn't be firmed and ready for events much earlier in the season than it is now. So it would definitely be a huge benefit. It's a very, very, very effective system. And then Ross can explain a little bit about the additional playing time we've gotten from installing it.
Yeah, the drainage systems that we've installed at Tibbetts Park, and you'll also see, of course, down at Issaquah Valley Park, has really changed the surface in the spring and fall when they're used in the spring, of course, by lacrosse and spring soccer program. In the fall with soccer and football, is that you might imagine when you have a whole bunch of little feet with cleats on a grass surface that's muddy or wet, it turns to mud pretty quick. And so what the drainage system has allowed us to do is it gets rid of that water a lot faster than if the drainage wasn't installed, and it's just a lot more pleasant surface to play on. And what happens if the grass gets too muddy, the field ends up getting closed because it actually damages the surface and turns it into mud. So it's been a huge benefit.
And one of the benefits of doing that at Tibbetts Valley Park is that we aren't able to put turf in, right, artificial turf. So this is sort of our shot at improving drainage and extending playing time at those fields.
Yeah, we've noticed a significant improvement in playability on the fields where we've installed the drainage. Typically, when it rains and the water sits on the surface, you have to cancel use by groups like Little League and baseball clubs in Issaquah. And with the drainage, it's playable. And so we've seen that in a lot of instances over the last spring.
Great. Anyone else have thoughts? Because I think what we need to do at this point is, if we have other questions or thoughts, we can share them. But what I would like to do is be able to make a recommendation that we approve the expenditures or the items, the priorities that are on this revised list, or we can modify them if that's what we feel necessary. If we feel strongly that that the pool's not, that this measure won't address the pool capacity issues, we can talk about that, and maybe we still make a recommendation, but we also send another message to City Council as well. So I think that's, yes, Joe.
I'm going to make a motion that we recommend this list to the mayor for the bond.
I need you to, I think, maybe turn your microphone on. Did you?
There you go.
Thanks.
I make a motion that we recommend the revised draft for the park bond 2013 to the mayor.
I'd second the motion for discussion.
Okay, now I believe we have a discussion.
Right.
Proper thing.
And I support the recommendations that the staff came up with. Again, it's difficult to figure out what the essential recommendations and expenditures are, but I think with all the public input we got, that this is a good list of those. I would recommend that we also send along to the mayor our concern about Bohm pool capacity, and that there be some sort of city effort to look at what can be done to increase capacity, whether that's working with other municipalities or coming back with other ideas for the pool, because it seems we can get it working, and we can get the hairballs out and get the water clear, and we can open up on Sunday, and we can do all of that stuff, and there still is just such a huge demand for the pool that I would support our recommending to the mayor that something needs to be done to increase swimming capacity in the city of Issaquah, and that it just can't be done by improving the pool that we've got.
Yes, Ruben.
Yeah, I'd just like to make one addition to that. I think the school district needs to be involved in the capacity issue, because I think that's going to be a real key to success. So we need to include the schools and their part in the
I think
arranging for a
funding
pool.
for the schools is in such bad shape that it would be nice, and certainly I think the city should outreach to them, but I don't think we can say we're not going to move forward without the schools, because I think it's not.
Well, I think that's open for discussion.
Yeah.
I think they need to be involved and be a player.
Absolutely, it should be involved.
Yeah, our user group matches up with the school district, so it's sort of, it's a bit unfair to ask the city, the residents of the city, to foot the bill for what the school district uses, or the school
The
district,
service district,
user
yeah.
groups. I also like this list. I think it's responsive to the public input that we received, and also kind of hits on the areas that we that we like to kind of protect in our city. So the open space, the athletic programs that are just really growing with the increased growth that we have. Confluence Park, which we've been working on for years and years and years. So the thought of giving some additional funds to that to move that forward is really appealing to me. And the neighborhood park, so I'm really happy with it. Brad, thought?
Yeah, I agree. It touches on all the highlights that we found in the citizen committee and also the EMC survey. So, I mean, the only real thing that you touched upon, Confluence Park, really isn't in the survey to really rate that highly. But the citizen committee, it certainly was. And so that'd be the only area, I guess, that I'd have a little concern with. But I think getting rid of the skate park might help offset that.
Yeah, I think the Confluence Park, I think that it just resonated with the priorities that we saw on the list and sort of hits those, and that's.
And also
That's what
think,
I
I mean,
thought.
this study was done some time ago before Confluence had Phase 1. I think now that Phase 1 is in place, the community will be in more support of Phase 2, just because they see some work being done.
I suspect a lot of people didn't know
Or even
don't know
what it
what
was,
Confluence
right.
Park is yet, because
Right.
it hasn't opened.
Right.
The only other thing I was going to talk about is in the pool. The pool will be out of use for whether it be 4 or 6 months or whatever, but it's much better to do a scheduled maintenance when people know it's going to be shut down than to wait until it breaks down. And we have a real bad problem where it's unscheduled and we don't have the funds to deal with it. So it makes a lot of sense to deal with this ahead of time, to get ahead of the game.
Make plans for where people will go.
Well, it's a lot easier to know if you know it's going to be shut down. It's ahead of time. It's way different than to have it canceled because it broke down because we didn't do the maintenance we needed to do, and the system boiler breaks or whatever, and then we don't have any funding at all to deal with it. So, it's a good. As a park board that's responsible, we need to deal with these things ahead of time.
Good point. Al, you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I agree with, I think the list is wonderful. I think everybody did a great job, as I said earlier. And I really like the idea that you're taking a look at Muirwood Park and Gibson Park. Sometimes a little guy gets left behind, and I know how much those are used. I drive by Gibson Park all the time. I see kids out there all the time. And Gibson Park looks great, picnic shelter and all that, and a nice new playground would really be nice out there too. So I really like the idea that those two little parks got some attention. So good.
Jeremy, you have anything more?
No, I think I'm good.
You good?
Yeah.
Ruben?
The only thing I say on Confluence Park, I think it covers a number of areas, open space, trails, and part of the Green Necklace. So even though it didn't come out as a priority in the initial study, I think when you look at those other areas, it covers kind of all those areas.
Yeah, I would agree. Okay, so are we ready to vote on our motion? Yeah, I think so. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, our motion passes. And we'll communicate, I think, Marilyn's concern as well about the pool capacity issue. It's not part of our formal motion, but it doesn't need to be. Let's see, I think that.
I had one more thing on
Yes,
my
Ann.
report. Electronically, the Mountains of Sound Greenway National Heritage Area was sent to you earlier today. Previously, you've asked about reports about the Mountains of Sound Greenway National Heritage Area. So if you look in your inbox, you'll see this. You have a chance to voice your support for this. It's going before Congress and the Senate, the U.S. Congress and the U.S. Senate. And so take a look at your inbox, and it's out there. Thanks.
Great, thanks. So our next meeting will be July 22nd in our home, Issaquah Trailhouse. And hopefully we'll see you all there. So without anything else, our meeting's adjourned. Okay.
Thank you.